Yes, greetings and the best of salutations. Um, just want to express myself in this wise when it comes to um, collective success, collective identity success, as it pertains to um, a turning point in a collective identity of stability and expansion. Yes. Um, if I would specifically deal with the what is termed the African American that is in the Americas. Yes, I was looking at one of the um, TV shows, if I may, and they were making using the FaceTime, as they call it. I believe it is. I don't can't recall the term, but they were calling people that they know, and these people are considered to be, people that are famous, and the word itself has the word ill to it, or a illness when you look at the origin of this word, because I realize that for the most part that people are they're being bathed in their in division, in division, and then they're basking in the glory of that of loving that being ill, or dope. Uh, it's like doped up with illness and their celebrityhood of being famous. Um, and because the survival of a collective identity in a monolithic structure is at stake, and it justifies. So it's like you bathe and you bask, and then you tend to, use that means in a way for possibly for bartering, and we know that barter is a system of exchange. Maybe I'm using it wrong, but I'm trying to make a point here how because barter is a system that pertains to a transaction that is directly exchange of goods or services for good or service while using a medium of exchange such as money. That's trade and barter. But or a sense of leveraging themselves, and they feel real good about themselves due to the fact of their fame, and that's the sickness. That's the sickness. But I'm talking about the collective identity of a people when one moves from a place of a point of defense, the turning point toward a one of stability and expansion. We would say that in 1863, people would say of the Emancipation Proclamation, when all was considered to be, released from physical slavery, but yet there was mental bondage. So, was there a collective identity of stability and expansion for the African American? And we know 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson, Dred Scott decision. No man right will be respected under this Constitution that will constitute the value. So who was that a collective uh, victory for? I mean, when it comes to collective identity of stability and expansion, who was that for? And we deal with the Brown Board of Education, 1954, Supreme Court decision. We deal with the civil rights in 1963, 64, that movement. And we deal with the first, considered to be the first black president, not to mention Matthew Henson. I don't want to get into that. Um, Not to mention Shirley Chisholm. Not to mention Rosa Parks, or a sister before Rosa Parks, who refused to sit on the bus. She just wasn't recognized by the broader society or accepted. You look at now recently the vice president. Is that a collective? Is that a turning point when it comes to a collective identity and a collective identity when it comes to a one's toward stability in the expansion of that stability for the collective people? I mean, you still got poor housing, you still got poor communities, you still got undereducation, you still got rampant with drugs, we still got many things that is going on in the community. So this battle that we are up against when it comes to a turning point of a collective identity of stability and expansion. When you know that you are being outnumbered by ignorance of the masses of people, whom can you call on for help? Where there are those who bathe and bask and even barter you at the expense of perpetuating and promoting your ignorance and each and every one of our ignorance, that will put us at odds with one another. So ignorance is outnumbering us. It is preventing the turning point toward stability and expansion of a collective identity. When it comes to the African American, if I may use that language. But yet, how do we learn not to throw the baby out with the bathwater? So we have to deal with a term called, favor. And we feel as though that we have been favored and we have been blessed when we become, celebrated or famous. But that is the individual that perpetuates and promote the monolithic structure of the society and justifying this is the way to obtain this fame, because it is the controllers who determines not only the manner and way which you go about becoming famous or celebrated, they control even they do their best to try to control the results of it, and if they do or they don't. I say that there is something else that is in control and is the best planner. But what I'm trying to see, and get others to see if they choose to see, is this being famous and going around and perpetuating, promoting, and basking in that glory and bathing in it. And maybe we're bathing in it like pigs and swine, and loving the bathe and the bath in it, to a point where it's that you becoming like swine, because where there is civil unrest, an animal or a child will take a nap. You are rendered temporarily unconscious, and therefore your intelligence and your thinking become kidnapped. And when you become kidnapped, and that's how the one who has kidnapped you, your intelligence, that's how they arm themselves based upon your ignorance, your fame, your individual fault, your immediate situation, where the collective of the masses of people are still living in poverty. And they say that's your problem. There's still instability. You have to look even at the industrialization even of America. Whereas at one time factory workers who produced the crop, they were benefiting. Then they took these jobs overseas. That is attacking the working class people. This is also too beyond race, class, gender, religion, politics, economics. Because the soul of humanity is at stake, man. Where's the one who produces it had direct, benefit from it directly? Then, the factory worker, when a factory comes in, they build a factory, then therefore they come in and then they get a piece of it. Very mob-like, huh? Very gangsterish. So now, in that trickle-down mentality, now everybody is a gang. Now many people want to be gangsters, want to be tough. The system is intellectually prostituting and perpetuating, promoting, and manipulating the circumstances of the ignorance of the people. So ignorance is outnumbering intelligence. So something must come down and offer, or something has come down. And what has come down is that we must come down off our arrogance, off our high horse, and realize that this is a public health crisis. If problems are human made, then humans should be able to solve them. Some say maybe 90% of the time, but 90% of the time we're under suspicious of each other. We don't trust each other because of a history of deceit, deception, corruption, chaos, and confusion. A history of you giving the perception that you are mentally stable when you're not mentally stable. You're just masking around as if you are stable, because if you were stable, then you wouldn't put people in a position that makes them unstable. When it comes to their daily lives, their daily activities, when they get up and go to work and try to provide for themselves and provide for their families. So, if you don't want that which you don't want for yourself, no one else can get it for you. Is that the case? But if one have been conditioned, programmed to think that way, when one thinks so, been programmed to think so little of him or herself. But what about one who thinks so little of himself or thinks so little of another? What if a person act in a manner and way that thinks so little of humanity? Is it enough to get mad at the beggar, or that which produces the beggar? Eradicate what produces the beggar. Eradicate what produces this mentality, man, of crime, corruption, turmoil, chaos, and confusion. Bathe in it. We bask in it. And we barter. And it's for survival purposes, huh? But we know that animals survive and humans should live. So there is a rule that is set up. That is division and fear. That one bathe in dividing in the distribution of what he or she is going to distribute, and they bask in loving to be able to do that. Because of the fear that they have when the masses rise up, when the bottom rail becomes the top rail. So we must topple this mentality, unhealthy mentality and attitude. When it comes to basking in, I am going about, someone is calling, it's very hilarious, calling and see who can make contact with the most famous person. Who thinks like that? That is arrogant, man. You're thinking more highly of yourself than you ought to. But yet has that thinking benefit the collective identity or the collective consciousness of not only African Americans, but for humanity? What is the turning point? When it comes to one's stability and the expansion of that stability. When we know that one does not have to worry about being let go from his or her job. One does not live in fear. It is said that in this when it says freedom from what? That's a turning point in the stability in the expansion of that stability, freedom from fear, freedom from what? Freedom from fear. And there was one more that I can't recall: freedom of religion, freedom of press, in pursuit of happiness, freedom, justice, and equality. That is a turning point. It is, it is written in the documents. In a world of an abundance, man. I'm talking about a collective identity that has benefited, or an identity that has benefited the African Americans primarily. It has benefited humanity as well, but has benefited, um, white people in America, if I may use that. A collective identity of stability and the expansion of that stability. So we realize that the battleground is ideological and the war is psychological, philosophical views. So individually, it says, well, we know that it's on the individual. The individual is the sum total of the whole. Man, all I'm trying to do, man, is dispel this silly stuff, man. This ignorance that's continued to put us at odds with one another. That we continue to rise above the conditions, the circumstances, in the situation, and even the activity and the thinking that we even think or engage in. I have a concern personally, and that is to overanalyze sometimes. So there's a program that I'm deprogramming myself not to somewhat overanalyze a lot of things sometimes. So if I'm overanalyzing this, correct me. But I know that the correct interpretation is that the sun, the moon, and star, they are in harmony with one another. And I know that the planets will not let, as a magnetic force, will not let nothing that contaminated come close to it. Working families, man. Working families in America, man. Working families in America, man. They are in a struggle. They are struggling. They're in a crisis, man. Because of um, this attitude or this thinking of using a medium of exchange and money and controlling that money at the expense of creating division, at the expense of creating fear. It creates instability. It creates suicide. It creates homicide. And it creates genocide, cutting through the life force of optimum health, of the totality of our well-being as a human person. Collectively, bank robbers identify with this and they rob banks. People who have participated in illegal activity, they identify. So they participate in this stuff. Trying to find value outside of themselves rather than finding value inside. So it creates a criminal element. So therefore, we have to conclude that it is a criminal genetic society, as Bobby Wright would say, and as Amos Wilson would say. Franklin Williams would say that. And what is the biggest crime you commit? Is fraud. Fraud is that you say that you can come through on something and you're unable to come through on it. That puts you at an advantage and put the other person at a disadvantage. So therefore, a lot of times, many of us who say, my child didn't have this, so I want my child not to go through what I go through, but yet you put your child through that same process that you had to go through, and you turning him or her over to to the one has shaped and molded and created this type of attitude, this type of demeaning, this 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 type of behavior that will put us at odds with one another, subjecting them to the same thing that you were subjected to. And therefore, he or she becomes famous. You call him or her notorious. You're setting someone up to be murdered, to be killed. And we still going around life acting as if we're not going to be accountable for our actions. We have become very numb, man. I always say that society is under social reconstruction, where our feelings are becoming desensitized, our thoughts demoralized, our attitude dehumanized, our communication devitalized, and our activity has become destabilized and dealing with a spirit of apathy. So, knowledge. What it is it based on, and who knowledge and what knowledge, how is it it's bestowed upon people. The knowledge that one's possess, he can have a develop a tendency to steal, to kill, and destroy. And he or she becomes committed to it. This knowledge that is bestowed on people, is it something that is the favor? Is it something that is rewarded, or the favor that is bestowed upon us on people? Is it something that uh, the rewards, is it based on one's capability, um, one's potential, one's credibility, one's reliability, one's dependability? To do what? To become a great fighter in the cause of freedom, justice, and equality. Freedom of want and freedom of fear, freedom of religion, freedom of press. These things are self-evident, which means an axiom. Axiom is self-evident, don't need no proof. That all men, talking about potential. Men is potential. Man is potential. Equal in potential. From birth. I mean, in your conception. Potential. From the sperm mixed with ovum. Potential. That we are endowed with certain. It's a certainty that we were created equal in potential, which is not alien to us. But who is the us? Is these is is this a alien talking? That they know something among them life, among themselves liberty, among themselves in the pursuit of what? A happiness among themselves. Happiness is the joy that you feel when you are in pursuit of your potential. You are in pursuit of that which makes you uh, equal. That's all we are. Many people are in pursuit of, but that which makes me equal. That which can equate. That happens to do with balance. The key to social life is family. Those who participate in that find in that find joy in it, and those who don't participate in that find joy in misery. So be leery, brothers, who you have the considered to be famous. You know that you don't fan the flame. To assassinate one's character or to assassinate character. Period. Which is the material that has been given to build on our humanity, because the issue is character resolved, is akin to murder. Can't assassinate the character of humanity, man. Going around boasting and bragging because individually you are, famous person and people worship, considered to worship the fools and silly people, I should say, worship you because of your ill, your illness, your sickness. People can see that the consciousness of people are rising up, man. Don't think that people are not rise. The consciousness of people are not rising up. But so let's deal with this once again in closing. The collective identity of stability and the expansion for the African American collective. I mean, after 1863, time of reconstruction, 1896, Dred Scott, 1896, Pleasant University Ferguson. Then you had the Dred Scott decision, maybe before then. I can't remember the time, the date, I should say. Supreme Court decision, 1954. Civil Rights decision, 1964. The first considered to be African American president, and not to mention the first sister considered to be the vice president. And I don't know about Geraldine, the what they call the white sister Ferrara. I can't think of her last name and how that. Um, when it comes to the the stability and the expansion of the collective identity for all whites, because they're struggling too. So we must merge humanity. We must merge each other's humanity together, beyond race, beyond class, beyond gender, economics, politics, and religion. You know, not to mention some of the strives, continuous strives of the Native Americans. Not to mention the Hispanics that are here as well, Latinos or what have you. That we don't become victims, man, of this trickery, man. When it comes to um, manipulating our ignorance and being outnumbered by ignorance. Intelligence is being outnumbered by ignorance. And ignorance is the result of hostility, as if there's nothing else to be learned. That what you think you of know, you realize you really don't know, and there's more to be learned. This blind side of life, you know. Earth, Wind, and Fire would say, open our eyes. This strive and this quest under this control to be, famous, but has it best served the collective identity when it comes to expanding the stability of one's collective identity and one's collective consciousness? There are religions that did that it expand their the stability of their collective identity and their collective consciousness. You know, but what about the extending the stability of the collective identity and the collective consciousness of humanity? There are ethnic groups who have done that. There are other subgroups who have done that. That they don't have really no one leader. That they just have a collective people. I believe Ella Baker say no strong people need no strong leader. It's the people, man. It's the people. Says, I will call you my people. People is less numerous than a race. A race is something that is conceptual. It's not factual. You know, be leery, man, that we don't bathe and when it comes to creating an environment, man, that continues to um, put us at odds, with one another. That we don't bask in it, that we don't start, leveraging each other. Because I don't want to misappropriate and use the word, barter, really, Maybe there needs to be a system of back to a system of trade and barter. We always have to go, between someone, to get to where we want to go. There must be a government within. We must come to conclude that there is a government within self. We are our own government with ourselves. People love to be worshipped. Some people pride themselves on division. Some people pride themselves of fear, keeping you in fear. You know, May we not barter our humanity, man. Sell our humanity, the soul of our humanity. Selling our birthright. You know, for a pottage of food, for food. You know, or our birthright with a fool, or being foolish. Being foolish. There's a lot to be learned, a lot to be said, and a lot to do. I pray in this that if one is being outnumbered with ignorance, I pray that the cosmic supreme intelligent force um, that we can tap into, or that it somehow send a spark down, if I may use it in that way, that resonates in our soul and resurrect in our mind and our attitude and our thinking and our behavior, that we will overtake, ignorance, and that ignorance will not overtake us. Stability in the expansion of the collective identity and the collective consciousness of the African American, the white American, the Native American, the Euro American, the Armenian American, the Native American, if I said that, Latino, Mexican, those who are in this Amir, the host of this land, this melting pot to get the gold off the draws, will become the model, morally, ethically, spiritually, and nobly, as well as correctly and humbly, in its potential to do greater things, not at the expense of one's individual achievement, one's individual success, but for the collective identity, for development of one's intellect, for the betterment of the whole of humanity. Until next time, little Joe, little Susie, Chichiwa, Shaniqua, little Joy, Lightfoot, Julio, Much love to you. Yo.